Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Watchlist Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Boyer, joined today by, once again, a fellow Kutztown University CTM grad, Avery Thompson. How are you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm pretty good, all things considered, with the whole quarantine mess we're still in. We're recording this a little while ahead, so hopefully it's all blown over by the time this comes out, but I mean, who knows these days?
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's getting wild out here.
Yeah. You're kind of like in the area of the state that's kind of the most affected, though, right? Like the Philly area, or are you kind
of? Yeah, I'm like right below that. So
okay.
we're getting I don't know, I don't want to call it the leftovers, but like it'll go through Philly, and then we're southwest of Philly, Coatesville.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it kind of just like trickles into that. We've got like, last time I checked, it was around like 70 something cases that was recorded. So I haven't been going anywhere.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know what the state of things are out here, but everyone is pretty much treating everything like it's a ghost town. Like no one's going out at all. Or if there are people going out, it's just like the few random people that you see walking down the street. It's pretty surreal. But I mean, it does leave plenty of time to stay at home, watch movies, work on various things if you're a creative person like you or myself. So there is that plus. So like I said, we both went to Kutztown in the same cinema, television, media production department. How did you decide that was something that you wanted to pursue?
Well, I didn't. It was an accident getting into the film major at Kutztown. And it's funny because I was going into it. I was in a college prep course program in high school, figuring things out. But when I applied, I saw, what was it? Design communication and media communication, and I didn't know the difference. So I picked media communication, and then I saw my schedule, and I'm like, why do I have scripts? Why do I have a script class? Like I thought, and even then I thought it was like theater, like script writing for theater, not film. So I was like super confused, but by the time like I saw it, I didn't know who to talk to about switching because I'm an artist. I draw, so I thought that I was getting into like the art college. So yeah, I mean, it was really an accident. But by the time I actually started going into the classes with Professor Johnston, who's one of my favorites, probably the best. He's the best.
Yeah, for sure.
But I just fell in love with the script writing class. Like I wish they had more before I left.
Yeah, I think they've introduced a bunch of like extracurricular stuff like that, where like there's an advanced script writing class now, and like intro to cinematography and all that. It makes me wish that I had maybe taken a gap year in between high school and college, so I could have caught some of those classes. But I'm always glad to see the department thriving, even after we left and all that. So that is kind of funny that you just kind of happened on the major, and that's really cool that you decided to stick with it. So I guess so you'd kind of been interested in more of like visual, like drawing and like graphic art and all that for like prior to college. So how long had you been interested in that?
I've been drawing since like Head Start. Like I even have, I gotta look for it, but I have like a tiny like 3x4 like notebook full of old Dragon Ball Z sketches that look like scribble. But yeah, I've been wanting to do this my entire life. Drawing is just in me. It's my passion. But I'm kind of glad that I didn't take it like as a major in college, because the course load that they have is crazy. And I did take some courses, like some extra courses for it, but I'm glad I took film because it just gave me something else under my belt. Because even like during this quarantine, I'm still going and trying to learn new things on my own time. So it was nice to add something else to the tool belt.
Yeah, I totally understand. And it is always kind of like you said, like regardless of what the medium is that you express yourself, there is kind of like this, like people who are the more creatively inclined kind of just have that inherent like drive to make something kind of regardless of the medium. So that is kind of it is good to expand that skill set.
And when we took the film courses, I would immediately go to storyboarding. So if whatever story or script we were working on, I jumped on that. So that was a good experience too. I just wish we had like a course specifically for storyboarding, because that would have been awesome.
Yeah, and I remember that was a lot of that was in your reel when we presented that before we graduated, and it was pretty impressive work, I gotta say.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. So, I guess moving on a little bit from that. So, you said that you've been trying to keep as busy as you can during the quarantine. But one other thing that I always see on your different Instagrams promoting your art is that you always share whenever a piece of yours ends up in a public place, or like you do a commission for a company or like another individual, and it is always very impressive work. So I guess just talk a little bit about how you've been trying to sort of hit your stride post college.
Thank you. So I'm pretty much I do like freelance graphic design part-time, and so I get like a bunch of different clients, but for the most part, people will ask me to draw them portraits of their families, stuff like that. One of my recent ones that wasn't a portrait though was my coworker during my day job, which is retail, where at least it was.
It's always nice to break out of that.
Yeah, he was running for a local office in Delaware County, and he asked me to design his business card. So I've done a couple of those. One of my better works was I designed 2 separate logos for a hair salon. One of my friends, her older sister owns this hair salon in Parksburg, and she commissioned me to design her logo, and now it's on all her stuff, which I'm very proud of because it was one of my earlier works too. So I wouldn't say I was, when I started doing graphic design maybe 3-4 years ago, and that design is probably 2 or 3 years old. So there's a lot of things that I didn't know that I do know now. So I'm really proud of that. But yeah, when I'm not doing commissions like portraits, logos, and like album covers and stuff, I'm working on a comic right now. It's a web comic that I have on webtoons.com, and I try to upload to that every week. I started. Wow. I started that 3 years ago, but then I stopped because I had a lot of things going on. I was still in college.
Right.
And then I finally came back to it. The old stuff is terrible, but the stuff that I've done like up to like a month ago is pretty good. I think it's nice. I have a backlog of stuff that I'm just putting out to put out. Eventually, I'll get to the really good stuff that I want. But yeah, it's pretty good. I'm trying to basically gather up a following. I have a lot of people who check for me on Facebook, but it's kind of hard to transfer an audience from one platform to another.
Right.
So I'm basically just grinding, trying to get that to go. Right now, I have a brand. It's called Velocipastor Comics, and the goal for the end of the year right now is to turn it into a legit business, like LLC and all that good stuff. So right now, that's where I'm at.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I gotta say, across you have a couple different accounts for like different like types of commissions, different artworks and all that. But just looking at your main one, it's a pretty impressive following. So I think that's something to be very very proud of. I have total faith you'll be able to do that. But yeah, no, it's just it is always hard. I think the most difficult part that we kind of underestimate, whether it be like I guess kind of just freelancing in general, but like one of the trickiest parts of like trying to be your own boss or like be your own whether it be like a videographer or like a freelance artist or whatever, like it is growing that base of people who know you and sort of will help you bring in new customers and all that. So that is kind of the most challenging part, but you seem to be doing a very, very good job at upping your game there.
Thanks. It's really all about marketing. I won't say that I'm the best at it, but there's a lot of artists that I know who are better than me, but don't have the following behind it because they don't know how to sell themselves. They don't know how to, do art for the sake of art, but also appeal to an audience.
Right.
And just like before me and you got started talking today, I was up in my studio sketching up some like fan art, but with my character in it, so that it appeals to different audiences, to round them up, to get them interested in what I'm doing. Because you can have something great and it can be your own original thing, but if no one can relate to it, then it's not. You're not going to be successful with it. Right. It's funny because I was. Do you watch the Game Grumps?
I'm familiar with them, not 100%. I couldn't tell you much about their content, but I know who they are.
Okay, well, they're Let's Players and comedians, and they have all these different like businesses on the side. But they just recently was just talking about stuff like this. Like if you can make art for the sake of art, which is great, but if you want to turn it into a business and be successful, then you have to appeal to a need.
And there is definitely a lot of a sort of struggle to be had with that, because there is not really like to the extent of like sacrificing your creative integrity, but it is kind of like finding that healthy compromise of like, here's what I enjoy doing and here's what I need to do, and how can I make what I enjoy doing more in line with what's gonna bring in new viewers or new customers or anything like that. So that struggle is definitely there, but if you can find a way to get it down, then that's like almost all the work done for you, because the creative part kind of takes care of itself.
Exactly.
So I guess moving on to sort of the movie element of the podcast, two questions that I like to ask every guest who is involved in a creative field. In your case, I guess it'd be more in line with how you got your start in drawing or character design and all that, because like you said, you kind of ended up in video production on accident. But I mean, if you do have a video or movie-esque story here, that's also great. But I find that a lot of people who, especially like directors or like cinematographers or anything like that, that whenever you hear them talking about how they got their start, they always mention that they would like mess around with like the family camera, or like they would always be writing stories or whatever, but there was like one movie or one show or one something that they saw, and then that's what inspired them to go full on and pursue their passion as their career. So do you have like a movie or a show or a moment like that where it just all sort of clicked and you were like, no, this is what I have to do with my life?
Yeah. So I guess the show for me would be an anime called Naruto. Uh, Naruto is my favorite anime cartoon of all time because it takes this underdog and puts him into like this fairy tale where he's like chosen to do great things, and even though like he's like overpowered at sometimes, he really has to like go through these life struggles that automatically make, well, that not automatically, but push him to make him stronger as a person and, you know, a protagonist. But so it was that show, and then Marvel Comics, specifically Stanley's personality and what he brought to the company as a whole over the years. It was just, I don't know, just extremely impressive, and just put some type of emotional like impression on me as to what I can do as an artist. And you know, he would have his speeches and, you know, yell Excelsior and call his fans true believers and all that stuff, and it really just like made you believe that whatever you could do it. And you know, I think besides, you know, the characters, the stories are what get me. Because I consider myself a freelance graphic designer, I consider myself an artist, but ultimately I feel like I was put in this world to tell stories. I'm a storyteller, and I have all of these stories that I want to share with the world, and I'm just getting ready to do that. And the stories that come out of Marvel Comics and the anime Naruto, it's just the power that lies within those stories that create such an emotional attachment for people was just so impressive to me. Like it's kind of like a superpower to me, I think. Like to be able to put words together to create a story that somebody watches and makes them cry, or convinces them that they too can do whatever it is that they want to do. That's some powerful stuff to me.
Definitely, yeah. The one thing that I always bring up is there's a great quote by Kevin Smith where it's in this book that he wrote where he talks about, there's a whole chapter on the people who influenced him creatively and how he got his start, and like what that moment was that I mentioned for him. But the one quote that he says kind of towards the end is he says it costs nothing to encourage potential artists, and it costs nothing to encourage an artist, and the potential benefits are staggering. A simple pat on the back, I think, is the second half of it. I always say the first half, but the second half of that quote is a pat on the back to an artist today could one day result in your favorite movie or the cartoon that you love to put on at midnight to just forget about everything that happened during the day, or a song that it makes you always tear up and reflect on your life. And so there is definitely a truth to what you're saying, in that there, like, just the simple encouragement or like the simple appealing to any one demographic does have these like huge implications that are almost impossible to really understand.
Can I just gush a little bit on a recent Marvel film?
Sure, go
that
for
came
it.
like 2 years ago. I know, like, just on like a relatable tip, like, so Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
I went to go watch that movie in theaters twice, and I cried both times.
Oh.
It is not the movie that you go to be crying, like, at all. like I went there the first time with my girlfriend at the time, and she looked at me like, what are you doing? Why are you crying? But it honestly, like, what's his name? Ryan Coogler, the director?
Yeah, Ryan Coogler.
Like, I don't know how much influence he has over the way that the story was told, but like everything in that movie literally was everything that I wanted to become. It's like, because I have all the comics and story ideas that I have right now. The movie Black Panther just was like, bam, this is what you want. Like this is what it, like, it's all this is what the payoff looks like of like, you want this, like this is what all your hard work should lead up to if you work hard enough.
Yeah.
Like, so that, it just blew me away. Like, now we can talk about like everything wrong with that film now, because it's been like, I don't know, 2 years or something. Like, the CGI was terrible, but like just like the message and the vision that I got from that was so much to me.
Yeah, it is definitely. I kind of come at it from the perspective of it is like, when you get down to it, in a lot of ways, it is just kind of like your standard Marvel movie with like the kind of what's going to happen before you get to the end. But there is something. It doesn't necessarily appeal to me, but there is something definitely unique about it, and the way that it was done. And Ryan Coogler is a very good director. From the other films of his I've seen, like Fruitvale Station. Let me pull up his filmography. What else has he done? I think he's doing the second one too, right? The one that's coming up sometime. I don't know when it would be coming out, or if it's been postponed.
Probably another year or so.
Yeah, Fruitvale. Creed. Yeah, he did the Creed movies. I forgot about that.
Okay.
And he's doing Space Jam 2.
Oh
supposedly.
My God. Yeah.
or just writing it, so that'll be interesting. But no, it's definitely that movie, not necessarily for me, but I do like, I totally understand what you mean. There's just some movies where it all just sort of clicks, and it's just like everything that you want in a movie, or anything you want in just like purely like a story, or like whether it be like content that, like in your case, you being a big Marvel fan, like content that you identify with prior, and then to see it represented in a much more broad medium like film, it is very it's very powerful stuff. So going off of that, kind of leading nicely into our next point, is the other question I always like to ask a guest whenever I have them on is, what are some of your favorite movies that are like your go-tos that you could always put on and always be in a always put you in a good mood no matter what's going on?
Okay. That's a tough question, only because I barely watch stuff. Like, I tried to recommend some stuff to my friends recently, and they're like, "What are you doing? Like, this isn't good." But I guess my number one of all time would be Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's just like a guilty pleasure of mine. I know it. I remember it used to get like dunked on at school all the time, because I guess it got brought up a lot. But it just came out during, like, I think I was in middle school, so it came out at the right time. Even though Scott Pilgrim is like an adult in the story, but like, I don't know, the juvenile stuff he was going through in the movie just was like, I don't know, relatable somehow. And then the aesthetic was so appealing because I'm a gamer. Like the Legend of Zelda startup, like the comic book like edits, and all the ridiculous fighting going on.
Yeah.
And then Michael Cera is just a gem. I love that guy. Like, he's great.
That whole movie is like really perfectly cast for each role. Like, Mary Elizabeth Winstead is the perfect Ramona. I forget the guy who plays the lead singer of the Sex Bomb, but he's like almost like perfectly lifted right out of the graphic
comic
novel. It's that whole movie is just really, really well cast, and I think Edgar Wright was the perfect person to bring that story to life. His whole like visual sense of comedy really suits that story well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was great. Trying to think of some other movies. Like if I had a top 5, I guess Black Panther would probably be in there somewhere.
Okay.
I'm gonna need a minute. So why don't you tell me yours?
All right. Hold on. I have a list somewhere. Scott Pilgrim was my number one for a while. It was kind of funny because that was like a case where I think I saw it maybe like my freshman year of high school, because a bunch of my friends were like, "Oh man, you got to see Scott Pilgrim. It's amazing. You'll love it." And I was like, "Oh my god, stop talking about this movie. I just don't want to watch it. It doesn't sound interesting." And then I was at, I think like Giant or something, and I saw it in like the bargain bin or something, and I was like, "Okay, well, fine. This can't hurt. If I'll just pick it up. I'll watch it. I can say that I watched it, and everyone will leave me alone." And then I watched it, and I was like, "This is the greatest thing I've ever seen."
Right.
So it is it was my favorite movie for a couple years, and then what else? I think before that it was The Big Lebowski. I really liked that movie.
That's on my list. I still haven't seen that.
Oh, you should. It's really funny. It's very kind of strange, and like it's not it's one of those movies where like if the hype could potentially ruin it, you know what I mean? Where it's like it gets hyped up so much, and then you see it, and you're like, "Oh, that wasn't as amazing as I thought, as everyone made it out to be." But it is a really funny movie, really memorable. I definitely recommend that one. In terms of my top 5 right now, I would say I think Scott Pilgrim would probably be number 5. Number 4. I think it would probably be a documentary that I recommended earlier in the show called Dear Zachary. It's just this really, really heartfelt, really sad, but like powerful story about like these two friends who, like they've known each other since 2nd grade, and they grow up and kind of go their different ways, and then one of them ends up murdered. So his friend decides to like make a documentary about his friend and like all the people who knew him, and it kind of evolves into something else as the production goes on, and it's really, really sad, but it's really good. And then number 3 would probably be John Carpenter's The Thing. My favorite scary movie of all time. I love it.
My mom loves that movie.
Oh yeah, no. Have you ever seen it before? Or?
I haven't seen it since I was a kid. You talking about when they were like in Antarctica or something?
Yeah.
And yeah.
I love that movie so much. There's so much that like it's just, I think that like the quintessential horror movie. It does so many things right. The creature effects are amazing. The writing's amazing. There's like it really does. Like, I mean, there are like jump scares in it from time to time, and I think that's a problem with like a lot of newer horror movies. That it's just a lot of jump scares and like big orchestral stings or whatever to freak you out. But what I really love about that movie is it really places a lot of emphasis on suspense and making you like creeped out and nervous, and kind of give you like this perpetual state of anxiety. And then when something like actually jumps out and is actually scary, it just feels that much more impactful. I actually just realized I'm wearing a The Thing t-shirt as we're recording. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's actually kind of ironic. Yeah, no. And then my number 2 actually, I won't say what it is quite yet, because it's actually the recommendation that I'm giving my guests for the next episode. So we'll hold off on that for a while. But then my hands down, my favorite movie of all time is again, it's like one of those ones where everyone's like, "Oh, what's that?" I don't know what that is. It's called Synecdoche, New York by by Charlie Kaufman. The same guy who did Being John Malkovich and Eternal Sunshine and the Spotless Mind, and an adaptation. He's done a bunch of like really weird kind of comedy drama movies, but that one is the first movie. He's written those other ones that I mentioned, but this was the first one he directed, and it's hard to sum up. It's kind of like about it touches on like a lot of the things that we talked about earlier about like finding your voice and like creative style and all that, but it's a really depressing movie. It's about it's about this like guy who he's in his like 40s or whatever, and he's like a struggling like theater director, and he gets this grant to do whatever he wants basically and make whatever kind of play he wants. So he decides to because he's very depressed and like a lot of things go wrong for him, so he decides to make this like brutally honest play about like you're born, you go to work, you die, and that's the whole thing. So he's trying to make this play all the while like where like things just keep on happening to him that are just getting worse and worse and worse, and he gets more and more depressed, and ultimately like he uses the play to kind of like dump a lot of the things that depress him or like give him anxiety and all these problems. He puts them into the play as a means of dealing with them, and it becomes like a very kind of, I don't know the word for it, but like very meta, I guess, where where the play literally at one point becomes it's a play about his life exactly. So he hires an actor to play him. His wife at the time is an actress, so she is playing herself in the play, and it just keeps going. Like they're like even further on in the movie, they decide, well, since this is a play about my life, then my character in the play needs to be making a play. So my character in the play needs to hire a character to play himself playing me, and like it keeps on going and going and going, and it's crazy, but yeah, no, I think that one actually might be on because they put it on Netflix recently. So if you get a chance to watch that, I'd definitely recommend it. But it's
and what's it called again?
Synecdoche, New York. It's
okay.
Yeah, I'll message you the spelling later because it's kind of I still get it wrong, but it's I want to say it's on Netflix because I remember being really excited when it finally came on. But it is a very it is one of those movies where you'll watch it and you'll be like, oh man, that like I feel kind of bummed out now. But yeah, no, that's my that's my top 5. That's kind of been like I kind of get very rigid when I organize things into a list like that, so it's kind of been stuck like that for at least a few years now. But yeah, those are my go-tos.
Okay, so I've got one of my favorite movies from a couple years ago. It's been a while since I've seen it, but the first movie of Insidious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that I don't know why, because I used to hate horror movies because I was a scaredy cat for the longest time. But when I first seen that movie, I was like, it was like one of the first times that I was scared, but I was entertained at the same time.
Right.
Like, and I don't know why, because I watch it now, and they get to the scene where the red like demon shows up, and I'm like, what is this? It's just so corny. But when I first seen it, I was like, yo, y'all need to stop playing, because the jump. I feel like the jump scares were like, they were better than what I was used to, and I think I was getting tired of the Paranormal Activity movies.
Right. Yeah.
Like they were just getting long, like just overdone.
Mm-hmm.
The found footage scary movies they were just abusing the mess out of that system. But yeah, Insidious, that was a good one. I've got a lot of I've got a couple good shows that I watch.
Okay.
Like I don't know why, but I have this problem like with movies. I only watch them once.
Okay.
But I gotta start watching TV more, because I wake up and then all I do is draw.
Mm-hmm.
But because if I watch a movie, I'm gonna have that'll be the only thing I do, because I multitask usually. Like I'll have like a podcast on. But the shows that I watch, BoJack Horseman.
Okay.
That was my favorite show for a minute, and when the finale came out, earlier this year. I was like, wow. Like have you seen it?
No, I have a lot of friends who've seen it, but I kind of struggle with shows. It takes a lot for me to get in, because I don't know. Like, I'm kind of the opposite, where like I really enjoy like focusing a lot of my attention for like 2 hours on one movie, but unless it's like a really good show, I kind of struggle to like stick with it, if that makes any sense. But from what I've heard, BoJack is an amazing show.
Okay, yeah, I won't. If you're gonna watch it, I'm not gonna spoil anything for you.
Okay,
but the conversation that they have throughout the entire series is so in depth and personal. It's a comedy, but like it gets very dark. And it really makes the viewer self-reflect. Even though it's about a horse who's a celebrity, a washed out celebrity. Like they take the most unrelatable thing, and it just the things that he does is just so personal that you feel it.
Right.
So I really liked what they did with that show, especially the second to last episode. Like I was shook. I was shook. But I won't speak on too much of that since you haven't seen it yet. Another show that I really liked was Community.
Okay, yeah, I've seen bits of that. That's really funny.
Yeah, Donald Glover, best part of the show for me. I was so upset the last season when he left, because the fire was gone. Like, but it was one of those sitcoms where almost like the same thing happens every episode, but they just do it a different way.
Right. Yeah.
So it's still funny. And the characters do grow, but it's kind of like a revolution. Like they'll experience something and develop, but then they'll turn right back around and reset with their development. So I guess it just gave them another way to add something into the mix while still enjoying this character that people have attached themselves to, without changing their personality completely.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
Yeah, so I really like that show. And then the Apocalypse season of American Horror Story.
Okay. I've seen a couple bits. I don't know if I've seen a full episode, but I saw a lot of clips from the Freak Show season, and it looked pretty interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that one was good, but that season definitely wasn't their best.
Okay.
I think the first Witch season was their best, I think. But the Apocalypse one really messed me up, because I watched it before all this pandemic stuff was happening. But like the way that they go about the world ending just messed me up. I definitely had an existential crisis watching this season, that season. Because of just the way that they go about things ending. It's been a while since I watched it, because like I said, I'll watch something once and then I'll just put it down forever.
Right.
But it definitely had one of the biggest impacts on me out of the whole entire series.
And is it just American Horror Story Apocalypse, or what's the...
I watched the Salem Witch one.
Okay.
I think I watched some of the Roanoke one, where I think it was like a haunted house. But there was ghosts from some different age period attacking the family that was in the house, I think.
Gotcha.
And then I couldn't get into the hotel one, the one with Lady Gaga.
Okay.
That one didn't interest me, but the Freak Show one was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of another one. I can't think of any more though.
What's the I'm looking at this. I again, I know nothing about this show, so I know like
okay.
I know like each episode, each season is like its own like story, and the characters come back and all that. But the only one that I even like have any slight knowledge of is the Freak Show one, just because I don't know, I saw a bunch of clips of it. But so yeah, no, there's Murder House, Asylum, Coven, Freak Show. And then they got this new one. I haven't heard anything about the 1984. Have you seen that one yet or no?
Is that the new one?
Yeah, that looks like the newest one.
No, I haven't watched that one yet.
Oh, okay. But I mean, like, damn, 9 seasons. That's a pretty accomplished looking show.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like, I gotta look into who writes for them, because that stuff is crazy. Especially I think that's a really cool idea of how you can have like a set show, but like every season is a different story. So you're not like stuck trying to develop a plot that has already peaked.
Right. It's a nice way to like, because a lot of times you see like with more like episodic shows, like maybe like Black Mirror or something, where like they'll have a longer episode and the story is self-contained. You don't really see it too often where it's like a self-contained season, like, you know what I mean? Like it's a good balance of having a lot of time to develop characters and explore a whole bunch of different plot lines while still staying contained and not having to worry about like continuity between seasons or between showrunners or writers or anything like that. So those are like your go-tos, like if anyone's like, oh man, what's a good movie or show? Like that's what you're gonna jump to.
Yeah, those are dope. Those are pretty dope. I don't think you'd waste time watching those if you like horror and humor.
Yeah, I'd say those are some pretty solid recommendations. And then speaking of, sorry, go ahead.
Yes. I was just gonna say, Insidious, the first Insidious. If you really like it, then you should probably finish it. But like the first Insidious alone is it's a little campy at this point.
Yeah, I think those movies in general have kind of gotten like you'd said with Paranormal Activity at that time, it was kind of stale. I feel like we're at that point now with like The Conjuring and Annabelle and Insidious and all that, where it's like, okay, what's the next thing? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. They're going back to classic horrors now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, with like Invisible Man, and like they tried to do The Mummy. I haven't seen The Invisible. Oh yeah, Candyman too. That trailer was really something else. Like I had never. I saw bits and pieces of the first Candyman. I didn't bother with any of the other sequels or whatever. But that trailer was really something else.
There's sequels to the Candyman?
Yeah, there's I think 2 sequels, but they weren't as well received. Let me look it up really. Yeah, there's Candyman, came out in 92, and then there's Candyman Farewell to the Flesh that came out in 95, and then Candyman Day of the Dead that came out in 99. And then there's this new one coming out, which I guess is like a soft remake, but also from what I understand, a sequel to the first one.
Okay.
Like pretending that the like 2 and 3 didn't happen.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the trailer. You're right. I had went back to watch the first one like a month ago because I had only seen like bits and pieces of it before too. When I was a kid. Like my mom's a crazy horror movie fan. But I went back to go watch it, and I was freaking blown away by the ending. Like I wasn't expecting it I didn't expect it to end the way that it did. So I'm excited for this new one.
Yeah, it definitely looks like something else, and like it's I do very much like that. There's this new kind of wave of I actually no. Let me reword that. I was gonna like sort of touch on like that. There's kind of like this new wave of like people who are just starting out, who are being like given control over like remakes and adaptations of like beloved source material. So I think that is kind of cool that like you have this like interesting scenario where people who were like young when these movies came out and possibly influenced them are now getting their chance to like express themselves through that same story and through that same set of characters and all that. Like you see it a lot with like the Marvel movies and having like people who are like big fans of the comics being able to go and then like make a Guardians of the Galaxy movie or a Black Panther movie or anything like that. But like it's just it's a very interesting and you know that the series or the story is in good hands then.
Right. They remade Nightmare on Elm Street, and that was trash. That was trash.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like, the design of like his torched face,
right,
was too much. Like, yeah. I feel bad because I like the actor who played as him.
Yeah, that actor is like I forget his name, but he's in a bunch of stuff, and it's like
he was in Rorschach. He was Rorschach.
Right. Yeah. I think it's just one of those cases where like Freddy Krueger is like just so embedded in our heads that like Robert Englund is the only person who can ever play him. You know what I mean?
Unfortunately, yeah, because it wasn't good.
But then, yeah, speaking of conflicting feelings on movies, I guess it's time to get into the film discussion portion of the show. So, for anyone who's unfamiliar with how this works, I used to have a YouTube show where I would recommend a bunch of movies to people, but I would show footage of the movies, and that gets flagged by copyright all the time, and I didn't want to deal with that anymore. So, and I also hated the sound of my own voice reading my scripts that I would write, so that's why we have this show, is that I couldn't continue to do that show anymore, but I still wanted to do film discussion. So every episode, the guest recommends me a movie, I recommend the guest a movie, and we discuss. And what I mean when I say conflicting emotions on movies, the Velocipastor was something else. I was kind of mad at it the first maybe 10 minutes or so, but after that I just fell into like, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna let this happen, we'll see where this goes, and it did turn into an enjoyable experience by the
what made you mad?
By the end of it. Well, there's not often where like within the first 2 minutes I pause the movie because I don't want to. We'll get into like spoilers later, but
okay.
We have the character of Doug Jones, and he's this Christian pastor, and he does a sermon or whatever. He goes outside, and his parents are there, like, "Oh, hey, son," and then the car blows up, and we get a shot of like an empty street with an overlay that says "missing VFX." And I stopped the movie and I was like, that's not real. Like that has to be a problem with, like, because I watched it on I think it was Tubi or Vudu or one of the two, and I was like, okay, that can't be real. So I looked it up. I think it was on Tubi, and then I opened up another tab and I queued it up on Vudu, and I was like, that has to be like a problem with Tubi. They maybe they got a bad render of this movie, and then sure enough it pops up in Vudu as well, and I was like, oh, it's this kind of movie. So at first I was a little I was frustrated with it, but then once we get like maybe like 10 or 15 minutes in, I was like, okay, I can't treat this as like a serious thing. I just have to let this do its thing, and hopefully I'll enjoy the ride. And it is it's a fun way to kill an hour and 10 minutes. So I guess just I kind of started it off the summary a little bit, but just tell us give us a plot summary of the Velocipastor.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, it's called Velocipastor. I mean, you can't. It's like the title of a movie that you would see, like a fake movie title in a Drake and Josh episode.
Exactly.
Like that's what that is. It's like somebody seen that and was like, yeah, let's make a movie out of that. Like,
well, I was reading how it came about, like literally on the wiki for the movie. It says The director thought of the idea in 2010 while he was attending college after his phone autocorrected Velociraptor to Velocipastor. So then he made a fake trailer, I guess, as a class project, and then I guess they crowdfunded a movie off of that trailer, and he ended up getting $35,000 to make the movie. So we all find our successes in unsuspecting places, I guess.
I mean, how awesome would it be for that director to like maybe like 10 years later become like one of the greats, one of the like top 10 best directors, and somebody's like, so what's the first film that you made? And everybody looks that up.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be too it's too funny. But yeah, no, it's a very good B movie. It's advertised as a comedy horror film. Actually, I have another funny story about before I watched this. One of the other movies I've talked about on the show before, Color Out of Space by Richard Stanley, which is a very good guilty pleasure horror movie. I definitely recommend checking that one out. But I bought a DVD copy of it, and I was watching the previews before, and there was a preview for this before the movie played. I was like, oh man, that looks pretty, like the trailer makes it look more like the trailer is very, very B-movie-ish, but they don't really show a lot of like the in-jokes, like the VFX missing or the she's fine that pops up or anything like that. So I was like, oh man, that looks interesting. I can't say I'm too excited to see that. But then, like, almost like a few days later, when I reached out to you, and you recommended that one to me, I was like, oh, okay. I guess I am watching this. But I'm glad I did, because it is, like I said, it's a fun time.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it just kills me, because I think the first time I heard about it, I was at work, and one of my coworkers was like, dude, you need to watch this trailer. Like, right now. I was like, what? What is this? Oh, and then the VX, the missing VX thing, that's like, what, 5 minutes into the movie?
Less than that. It's like a minute and a half into the movie.
And that's literally all we watched, like at work. And then we were like, okay, we gotta go home now and finish this. But it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, and one of the scenes that got me was, I mean, there were plenty of scenes that just killed me, but it was the pastor and the woman he was intimate with.
Right.
And it's like a freaking a montage of them.
Yeah.
And it feels like it was ripped straight from like a transition from Austin Powers, where it's just a bunch of like sliding shots across the screen of him doing different things.
Yeah.
Like it felt like so out of the movie. Like the movie's crazy, but like it just didn't feel like it felt like I was watching Austin Powers. Like,
yeah.
That movie is crazy. I have to, like, when the pandemic is over, I just need to, like, pull all my friends together so we can watch it.
Exactly. And just not tell them, like, just give them the title and not tell them anything else and watch what happens. But it is it is one of those movies I could see, like, if you got a bunch of people over and, like, they knew nothing about the movie and you played it, I can imagine everyone having a great time, because it gets really out there, like in ways that like it like doesn't really, I mean, like the poster kind of spoils it a little bit, but like if I'm just hearing the title, okay, you got this pastor who turns into a dinosaur and he uses this power to kill people who are like sinners or whatever. The last thing I'm expecting is that there's a drug dealing ninja syndicate that is trying to actively ruin his life, and that it's crazy. Like that's the one that if I could just summarize it in one word, other than the title, it's just pure craziness. But it is very funny. It has a lot of there's a movie that I enjoy that kind of does what this movie's trying to do in a little bit of a better way, I think. But have you ever heard of Black Dynamite?
Yes, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, like it's a lot like that.
I watched your podcast of that like a couple days ago.
Oh man.
Yes. And I've only seen Black Dynamite once, but I need to watch it again because it's gold. Like,
yeah, it's one of my favorite comedies of all time. But it does a lot of what this movie does is kind of like in that same sort of vein, where it's like we're gonna be like really cheesy and over the top, and we're gonna parody like the sort of like revenge genre in like a lot of the ways that it was done in like the 70s era of like grindhouse movies, but and then there's also like the visual gags, like we keep on saying the VFX missing, or the line where like the sequence where she's like, oh, I'm fine, you're fine, and then they throw up on screen she's fine for in big bold letters in case you didn't get it. But no, it is it relishes, or like the end fight where there's like a whole bunch of different one-liners, all from like where he's like, what does he say? Well, I guess we're getting into a little bit of spoilers here anyway. So I mean, if you haven't seen the Velocipastor, you should have watched it before this podcast. What are you doing? So that way you're in on the discussion. But if you haven't seen it yet, go pause it now. It's free on Vudu and Tubi. You can also watch it, or if you don't have either of those, you can watch it on YouTube, Google Play, or Amazon. Rent it for like $4. But definitely see it at least once. It's a fun way to kill an hour and 10 minutes. But yeah, like the one-liners at the end I was mentioning, where he's like, 6 words, my hands are immune. Like it's just it just relishes in these in like the tropes of that type of genre, it's fun. Fun and crazy is how I would summarize it.
Just the Velociraptor itself is just like enough. It's like, okay, all right. Like,
and the fact that like it's like also in true like in parodying that genre, like they kind of like one of the aspects of it being like they're not gonna like they never show him like in his full like dino form or whatever, except for like a few parts in the beginning, and then like for the whole middle of the movie he's like a kung fu expert, and then he goes full dinosaur at the end in the best way possible. Like it's very it makes fun of that, of like we kind of have to hide how bad this is, but we can't really like, and but this movie, it doesn't care about that. It just relishes in the fact that that it is that crazy.
Yeah, that and like the evil laugh of the ninja and his like, I just like, why all the ninjas. One of the things that got me was like all the ninjas are Asian, and then like his number one man is some like white high school kid. I'm like, where did you come from?
I like that a lot. Like, that reveal.
And then he's trying to keep up with his evil laugh. And it goes on for like 3 minutes. I'm like, what? Can we go to the next scene, please? It's a little painful.
Just a little bit, but yeah, no, it's and it like again, it goes places that you're not expecting it to go. Like we like halfway through the movie, we get the backstory of like the older pastor for no reason, and again, it's just like purely making fun of like movies, like the like genre stereotypes of like I haven't been hit once in this whole war. I'm gonna, when you get out of here, name your first child after me, and immediately gets shot right through the heart. Like, it's very.
Well, I think it was like his wife or someone was looking for him while he was supposedly at war.
In like
and
Vietnam.
She's on. Yeah. Like, where did she come from?
She steps on a landmine like that was right in front of him the whole time, and they're, oh yeah, landmine, huh? Well, nothing we can do about her. Like, it's very like it shouldn't be as funny as it is. Like, I feel bad saying that, but it really, like, I can very easily see, like, if I had stuck with that mindset of like that shot isn't real, like there's no way that this is actually happening. I feel like it would have been a very different experience. Like, I would have like been instead of finding that stuff as funny as it did, I feel like I would have just gotten mad at the whole movie. So it is very polarizing. Like, if you're not gonna stick with like all the weird things that it does and all the craziness that it indulges in, you're just not gonna have a good time. So it is very polarizing. But I think if you can like muscle past that sort of gut reaction of seeing the beginning and just kind of let yourself go, it's enjoyable.
Yeah, definitely have to like force that suspension of disbelief, or like it just accept that like this isn't one of your movies that you like sit in class and pick apart. Like,
right.
No, this isn't one of those movies.
Yeah, but
I really wish that they would show this in a class, like.
Yeah, if only purely being like, here's some interesting like modern satire and parody ideas you can use, but also please invest in a good VFX budget.
Yes, please. Like, I don't even know how much the movie made, if it made anything.
Let's see. I'm on the wiki right now. It was made for $35,000. It doesn't say anything about what it grossed. I can't imagine that, like, it probably, if I had to guess, maybe like made its money back and that's it. Maybe it was a little bit more successful, but I feel like if it was, if it did make a lot of money, we would have heard about it like way sooner than we had. Because I feel like a lot of B movies, like stuff like Birdemic or like Sharknado or whatever, like you only really hear about the B movies that are like runaway successes. So
yeah, it's weird because like Sharknado has like 5 movies and I haven't seen any of them.
I think that's one of those movies where you don't really need to see it to understand what's what the appeal is. But it's
or like there was a movie that was on Netflix for a while, and I'm mad that I didn't watch it, but it was about a killer tire.
Oh yeah, Rubber. Like, that's another one that everyone loves to talk about. I haven't seen it in its entirety, but from what I understand, it's very similar to this, where like it doesn't take itself seriously at all. It's just stupid fun. That's a shame that that's off Netflix though, because I know that I remember hearing for a while that was like the weird, like you find it at 3 a.m. after scrolling for 2 hours and you're like, what the hell is this? But it's it definitely has it regardless of how much money it made back, it definitely, I think, has a very good spot in like so bad it's good and just the like modern B movie genre.
Yeah, that movie was crazy.
And actually, now that I'm looking at the wiki, there's apparently in talks for a sequel from for Velocipastor. Yeah, the director Brendan Steere. It just says Brendan Steere wants to do a sequel to the movie, as he believes the world of Velocipastor is so permissible and fun. So I guess we're gonna see him and Carol traveling the world. Killing more ninjas and getting rid of more sinners.
Wow, I can't wait. I need another Velocipastor. Like that can happen.
I'm excited for it. But and then as they say in Monty Python, now for something completely different. The movie I recommended Avery is a 1973 animated movie. I'm not gonna try and pronounce the French title, but the American version is called Fantastic Planet. I was trying to think of, like, because just purely going off of the like your art and the fact that you're a graphic designer, I was trying to think, like, man, what's a really a movie that I could recommend that has a very strong visual style to it that's like not really like anything else, and that I settled on this one, but I didn't really think about it until after I recommended it. I was like, man, this is kind of like a really out there movie, so yes. I hope it's not too I don't know, like I hope that I don't do to him what Velocipastor did to me in the first few minutes. But so I guess what did you think of? Well, actually, I'll give a quick summary. So, Fantastic Planet is a like I said, it's a 1973 French animated movie. It takes place on this alien world where you have these big blue aliens called the Drogs, and it's not really expressly said how this happens, but there's also humans on this planet, and the Drogs are much bigger than the humans. It's kind of like, if for size comparison, it's like what a gerbil is to our size, comparing these two creatures. But the humans are basically treated as like pets. In some cases they're treated as like pests, or like things to be killed or gotten rid of. So the whole movie is kind of like the struggle of the humans to adjust and adapt in this like strange world that they don't understand, and I love it a lot. So I guess what did you think of this movie?
I thought it was pretty wild, because it gave me like a look at what would happen if like aliens actually came, or yeah, like what if we weren't like the head like species in charge, like right. Having a whole like, especially how huge they were, and then I was trying to figure out like what kind of experience like the humans had on that planet, because I think I remember them saying that they had taken humans from planet Earth and brought them to their planet, and then they started populating. I don't know, like, is there like a limit to what I should be saying? Like,
no, I think that's all because that's all happens pretty early on. I don't think that's quite spoilery yet. But yeah, no, you're right. Okay. I had forgotten about that. I think it is a case of like, because the aliens themselves are very like apathetic, like they don't really show emotion that much. So that scene that you're mentioning is kind of like, oh yeah, no, we went to Earth and we found a couple humans, we kind of wrecked everything, and we took a few of them back, and now they're just another species on our planet. Like, and it's kind of like it's very wild. Like it is kind of like it is in a way kind of like the existential like kind of horror element of like, what if we weren't the dominant species, and what if the dominant species was this like apathetic race that just didn't care one way or another if we lived. Like, again, like the one thing that I kind of like draw a lot of comparison to like is like our relationship with like insects or like smaller pests. If ants had like the cognitive ability to watch this movie, they would probably be like, yeah, no, that's my life. Like that's I just live in constant fear of these giant pink things that could step on me at any minute, and if they ever find me in their home, like I'm viewed as this horrible pest to be gotten rid of. Like it's very like kind of eye-opening in a weird way.
The discussion that they have in the film is pretty crazy, because like the comparison between like, you know, us and ants and like us and those aliens, the difference is those humans still have like the capabilities of being intelligent, whereas the ants are kind of just, you know, ants. They have certain functions that they do and then they die. Like they don't they're not like trying to learn how to, I don't know, read or create something.
Yeah.
Besides the holes in the ground that they live in. But like, it prompted such a scary thought, like, because what the movie could have went so like differently if these humans were just dumb.
Yeah.
Like, but they weren't, which made the plot go like even crazier. So it was kind of like, it's kind of funny though, because the movie, like the story itself, like the aliens are really at fault for like everything that happens.
Yeah.
Because nobody told them to take humans from the planet they were from and put them on their planet to create all the problems that they did. Like, if they had just left humans on Earth, then some of the things that happened wouldn't have been such a big deal. Like, they had there was a couple of different scenes which were really cool. It's like they had a meeting with, like, I'm assuming, I guess all the important people on the planet.
Yeah.
And they would like have a discussion about what to do about the humans, but it's like, y'all brought them there in the first place, and why wouldn't y'all like keep them in some like controlled area?
Yeah.
Like they were just spread around. But like, I guess just to go on another tangent, like I don't remember the artist's name, but like, humans and those blue aliens aside, the world, crazy.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that will probably stick with me the most out of anything in that film was this creature that was like, it looked like it was in a cage.
Right. Yeah.
And it would attract these other creatures that could fly. And then, so they would land on, I guess, its branches or limbs that acted as branches.
Yeah.
And then it would just violently shake the crap out of the creature, and then throw a slam on the ground. Like, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
But and it would laugh.
Yeah.
It would laugh. And then the camera like zoomed out, and you could see like
how huge it is.
How huge it is, and then like all the birds that it's done that to.
Right.
First of all, I'm like, okay, the bird is stupid because clearly it doesn't see or it doesn't care about all its dead brethren underneath this violent creature. And then like, just to think about what kind of like mindset this creature has.
Yeah.
It's literally torturing and killing animals for pleasure. It's not even eating these animals. And all of this happens in like 5 seconds, and then it goes on to the next thing. I'm like, no, can we come back to this creature? Cause like,
that's what I really love about that movie, is because like, it's like you said, there's a lot of like really subtle world building that you get like by just looking at the background, or like a couple throwaway lines, and the fact that it is so short, it kind of that it is its benefit, is that it doesn't really have the time to dwell too much on like why things are the way they are, kind of, and like it's not necessarily a horror movie, but like you said, it like the fact that there isn't really much of an explanation, it kind of lends itself to that these kind of scary ideas of like not understanding what's happening. But then like, again, just going back to like the whole idea of recontextualizing stuff that happens in the movie, it makes you wonder, like, if aliens landed and they were as small and helpless as the humans in this movie are, and they saw something like a Venus flytrap, would they like that's the reaction that you have to that thing, just like throwing birds and stuff on the ground, is probably on par with like something that doesn't know anything about life on this planet. That's probably how it would react, seeing something like a flower, like a Venus flytrap, like eating flies or whatever. The other scene that I like to mention is when the main human character Tear, like he gets out of, he's like a pet for a while in the beginning of the movie, and he escapes the room and he sees 4 of the adult drogs, and they're just kind of sitting, and they do this weird thing that's never really explained, where like their bodies kind of like melt and like transform and merge, and like they change color and they go into these different forms or whatever. And then the Tiwa, I guess like the teenaged or like younger drog comes in and sees that, and then the adults like immediately snap out and are like, "Oh yeah, no, sorry, we didn't mean for you to see that." But it's never explained what happens. But then again, it makes you think like a gerbil or like a dog or a cat, or like if you have a pet on par with that, just kind of like chilling in your living room, and you install like this new TV and suddenly turn it on, and it's the first time that animal's ever seen something like a TV. It has no way to like comprehend what's happening. It just knows what it's seeing. So it makes it's very, very strange. It takes like these very abstract concepts, and it makes you experience them in a way that you wouldn't have had otherwise, which I really, really like about that movie.
Yeah, that stuff was pretty wild. It had a lot of cool ideas too, like the learning device that the Tiwa had. Just being able to like sit and listen to somebody give you a lesson, and then the lesson just stays in your mind permanently. That was pretty cool. But yeah, like it was just like a lot of little things like that really made that movie like create so many questions, like and even like right now, it's making me think of what this film could have inspired like other people. Like it made me think of Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Like just like the random planets that they go to that have no explanation to them. That creature that I was just talking about made me think of just like the random creatures that they be making for that show. Like,
right.
It's just wild to me. And then I watched the film, and then I went to go look at some reviews, which there aren't many, and the one that I watched 2. The first one was bad. I didn't even finish it. Yeah, I don't know what they were doing. But there was another one where they made like a comparison to this film and the show. I don't know if you watch it, Steven Universe.
I'm familiar with it, but I don't know much about it.
Okay. So there's an episode where they have it's called The Zoo, and it's literally the main character goes to this other planet, and the planet has humans, and they're in this garden, and they're only being given like specific knowledge about things, and they have like a specific like mating time, and they're all just kept in this place that these aliens who are huge, and they call it the zoo. And it was really crazy how heavily inspired that looked compared to Fantastic Planets, and how the humans mate in that in the park.
Yeah. And that's another thing too, like that I didn't really pick up on until I saw it this time, is like you kind of touched on it a little bit, where it's like they're all kind of spread out, but like the fact that a lot of the movie is kind of spent like with like the humans who are like so tiny. There's a line later in the movie where it's like, we need to get out of the park, and then you realize like this whole movie has taken place in like such a small, like relatively small area. It's kind of like mind-boggling. Like, oh man, like if this is just one part of this like giant world, like what else is going on? And that is one thing that I do very much appreciate about the movie, is that it doesn't waste too much time explaining like the way things are. It relies on like its visual style to explain like, here's what this world is like, and here's the struggles of the humans, or ohms as they're called, and it just does a great job of making you understand like the dangers and the struggles of the situation without having to have people like explain it to one another. And I feel like a lesser movie would have had like maybe like the main guy Tear, like the main human, like he escapes into the wild, and you maybe have like a 10-minute scene where like that girl he runs into explains like, here's how we live outside of the wall, and here's all of our like everything that we do. It's different than your like that never really happens. They just kind of meet, and he goes in, and like you like see visually like here's how they resolve things, and here's their struggles. There's never really there's never like dialogue explanations as to like what's happening or why, and I think that makes it more of a powerful experience because it forces you to like try and comprehend a lot of things that are, in the case of like the drogs, are kind of like incomprehensible. Like that scene where they're all like merging, or the different technologies and stuff that they have, and like the different like shots of like their bedrooms or whatever, where it's like you have this like big pit in the middle, and that you find out like that's just their bed, like they just curl up in that and go to sleep. Like it's so strange.
Did you? Yeah, and then like her leg merges with her other leg, like
yeah.
There's so many things that happen so like subtly that you're like, what?
Yeah.
and they just keep going. Like this is just the world that we're in, accepted. Like and just how like simplistic everything is too.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty dope. Like the drogs are lived in this like very minimalist world.
Right.
But I think like the movie itself, for me, it really gives you like, it makes you appreciate like how life is right now in the present, mm-hmm. as a human being, because who knows like what we do if aliens actually did like just abduct us and mm-hmm. take them to their planet
just because,
and take us to, just because like that's wild.
Yeah. I guess going into spoilers, like the only thing that I really have seen like complaints about that I kind of wanted to get your opinion on was a lot of the negative, or not like a lot, but like some of the negative things that I've heard said about this movie is that it ends very abruptly. Did you kind of get that feeling at all, or did that not really bother you?
No, actually, I think the ending kind of surprised me. On it, like it probably shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. Like, because the way it ends, it's like, they. I guess you know what? I know what you're saying, because the drogs are like having meetings every time something happens, and then like the humans are trying to escape. They escape from the park, but in doing so, they end up killing one of the drogs because he starts killing them.
Yeah.
Like because they're pests to the drogs.
Mm-hmm.
And then like they start getting all the technology, and then they find some abandoned, like they conveniently find some abandoned metal factory or something, and they create rockets. So it does feel a little abrupt, but I think for the sake of the type of movie that it is, I think it worked. I think it worked fine, because there's already so many questions being created within the first 30 minutes of the film. And then it's like there's a specific story that is being told, and I think that it does a good enough job throughout the film to get its point across. When it ends with one of the younger drogs getting all of it's like everything that we just watched was history being told in that headset to a drog. I thought that was like that was a great way to end it. It's like, yeah, so all of these things already happened. Like you've just been listening to a broadcast, like and then like I guess people were probably upset that the Drogs didn't, like, I guess, fight more after one of them died, but like these Drogs are clearly intelligent beings.
Yeah.
So the only reason that the humans attacked is because the Drogs sent all of those like pest control things to kill them all. And then they had the technology, and they realized that the humans have the ability to create. And they got to the point where they were interrupting their mating ceremonies.
Yeah.
So, like.
And they just have that moment where they're like, okay, well, because again, it's very much established that the Drogs are very like apathetic, and they don't really put so much thought into it, and they're just like, okay, well, we probably shouldn't mess with them. I guess let's just coexist. Like,
yeah, exactly. And I felt like that made the most sense, because they definitely hammered on the nail that humans procreate a lot faster than they do. So, and then it was like, even though they could find out where they were hiding, there was still enough of them to find a new hideout and procreate enough so that if the hideout was found again, they could go find a new place and procreate some more to replace the people that they just lost.
Yeah.
So, and then they would probably make more rockets to interfere with their mating ceremonies. If they can't procreate, if they can't do their mating ceremony, then they're just gonna constantly be at a disadvantage. So it made sense to me. I wasn't mad at the ending at all, but I do understand that like it did feel a little like a little rushed.
Yeah, I guess like the last like two things that I really wanted to touch on, I kind of mentioned earlier. Like, it is a very visually very interesting. We keep on saying like visually interesting movie. It's very strange, like because I definitely wouldn't call this a kids movie. Like, if you tried to put this on for like the same demographic that like really enjoys like Frozen or Tangled or whatever, they would have a bad time. So I think it is something. There's definitely something to say that like I think there should definitely be more animated movies that aren't just geared towards children, because like it is a very freeing medium to try and tell stories, and it allows for a lot of creative visuals that aren't necessarily achievable, or if they are achievable, they're not entirely achievable in a way that is convincing enough yet, even though like our visual effects industry has made like leaps and bounds in like trying to make photorealistic things. I just think animation is a very untapped market for more like teen and adult oriented movies. And the one thing that kind of blew me away was and I guess I should have thought about it a little bit, because the motion in the movie isn't very like fluid. It is kind of very jerky and like I guess like almost stop motion ish, and I was like, I wonder why they did that. And then I found out that the movie while it is like pencil and paper animated, it's pencil and paper animated in the way that the early episodes of South Park were. Yeah. Where you have like the static background and like these like paper characters you kind of like move around on top, which I thought was like really impressive, because it's very very seamless, especially for the early 70s. Right.
Yeah, I watched one of the reviews I watched mentioned that, and I was impressed. I was that's it. Stuff like animation like that is so tedious, but when you can pull it off like that, it looks very satisfying.
Yeah. And then the only other thing that I wanted to mention was the soundtrack is amazing.
Oh my
I love
goodness. That soundtrack is one of the best things about that film. And I heard that it's it became as successful as the film.
Yeah.
Like it's the conductor, because it's like funk and jazz.
Kinda, yeah. Like you have a lot of like the like stuff that you would hear in like early like funk music of that like time period, mixed with like very like kind of very like trippy like guitars and like in some cases like kind of synthesized like whooshes and like vocalizations. Like it's a very trippy and very fittingly like otherworldly like sound.
Yeah, I gotta if you have any more films like this on any of your lists, please let me know, because I really did enjoy the tone and aesthetic of this film. Like it was wild.
Of course,
I keep saying wild, and I guess that just like the director probably would love that, because he just hit the nail on the head with the theme of what he was going for, because all the things that happens in this film are crazy and out of this world. I wish films like this would get more attention, but like this film is so not like mainstream type blockbuster material.
Yeah, definitely. That is the one thing I actually looking at the director's wiki. It looks like he's done a bunch of short films, but it looks like he actually retired in '87. He's only done 3 feature films, this being his first one, but he did it looks like 2 other animated sci-fi movies that both came out in the 80s, 1982 and 1987. The first one's called Time Masters, and then the other one's called Gandahar or Gandar. I don't know. I'll send you I don't know how easily they are to find compared to Fantastic Planet, because I know Fantastic Planet has a very like cult following to it. But if you can, I'll definitely send you links if I can find ways to watch either of those. But yeah, no, it's Fantastic Planet is a crazy movie that I really, really enjoy. One of my favorite animated movies of all time, and I'm really glad you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah, I love a film with a good story. I'm a sucker for some dope character development and emotional attachment. So I really enjoyed this film for sure.
I'm really glad to hear. And I guess on that note, that kind of brings us to the end of this episode of the Watchlist Podcast. Avery, thank you so much for doing this. I had a lot of fun talking animated movies, different art styles, television shows, horror. We kind of ran the whole gamut of different genres and movies to talk about.
Yeah, man, this was fun. I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous. It's been a while since I've been on a podcast with somebody. Last time I was in school, but yeah, this is really fun. I can't wait to see how this turns out.
Thank you. I'd definitely love to have you on again sometime. We could talk more. Maybe we'll have a double feature where we can hopefully Velocipastor 2 is out. We'll see that, and then we'll watch one of the other sci-fi movies this guy has made. We'll do a revisiting. So thank you guys for watching the Watchlist Podcast. Tune in next time. We're going to have 2 of my video production friends on the show, one of whom you may remember from episode 5, Jackie Fiorillo, a film student who I actually met while she was interning at PBS where I work, and then also Erin Neupauer, another film production student who will be on the podcast for the first time. But the 3 of us will be on talking about some very interesting movies. If you want to be in on the discussion for next time, we'll be talking about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. We mentioned it a little bit earlier. One of my favorite movies ever. Written by Charlie Kaufman, directed by Spike Jonze, I believe. Michel Gondry. Sorry. That you can find if you want to be in on the conversation. You can watch it for free with a Hulu subscription. If not, you can rent it for, looks like $4 on pretty much any of the other streaming sites like Vudu, YouTube, Google Play, iTunes, Amazon Prime. Erin recommended that movie. Jackie recommended Memento, the Christopher Nolan movie from the early 2000s. Another great drama. That you can watch for free on Tubi with ads, or you can rent it for $3 from pretty much any other streaming service. And then finally, I recommended the two of them. We talked about it a little bit earlier on this episode, but my second favorite movie of all time, an animated movie called It's Such a Beautiful Day by Don Hertzfeldt. You may know him as the guy who made Rejected Cartoons on YouTube back in the early 2000s. One of those like viral videos that trended for a while. So we'll be watching that. So yeah, it looks like you can rent it for $4 on Vimeo. So go check it out there. I don't think it's on any other streaming service at this point, at least that I could find. But yeah, so those are the movies we'll be talking about next time: Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Memento, and It's Such a Beautiful Day. So once again, Avery, thank you so much for coming on the show. I had a great time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This was fun.
Of course, yeah. And thank you guys for watching the Watchlist Podcast. We'll see you next time.